My name is Alan Roeder. I'm the firefighter and paramedic with the Madison Heights Fire Department, also hazardous materials technician, and this is a training that we're going through for our operations review for our department personnel. So let's start off by talking about the differences between the different levels of the certifications that we have, the awareness versus operations versus the technician. At the awareness level, they identify those hazards, materials, weapons, and mass destruction using simple sentences. So we don't actually expect anybody to make a specific identification other than, hey, this thing is really bad, I should probably call somebody, right? As you can see, this is going to be the industry folks. There's also be a lot of these people that work in the field at the facilities that they handle hazardous materials. They don't necessarily have to be at the operations or technician level if they're just around it and just dealing with it in a general sense. For our operations level, which is what we have again is the Certified Firefighter 1 and 2 in the state of Michigan, identifies by specific PPE, which is the reason why we say at the operations level you're more likely going to be in charge of the decon aspect and the supplemental, the help out portion, getting these technicians dressed into the level A suits, being the gopher, writing down the documentation, a lot of times doing the research, all sorts of things are very, very easy to do at the operations level. For our technician, again, that's what we're going to be doing for our research a lot of times, identifying specifically what the way that this chemical is reacting, what it's doing, maybe what to expect, how it's going to be performing in the future, which direction it's going to travel. As with everything within the fire service, we have NFPA standards that we adhere to that are associated with that, including NFPA 472, identifying minimum level of competence required by responders. 473, the standards for competencies for EMS personnel, because we are a paramedic department, we also have to adhere to this. 475, the standard practice for organizing, managing, and sustaining hazardous materials, weapons of mass destruction response program. And then finally 1072, which is the standard for weapons of mass destruction emergency response personnel qualifications. So we're going to take a look and say, well, what is the difference between a hazardous material or a hazardous waste? There is a difference, as you know. Hazardous material, solid, liquid, or gaseous material, it's radioactive, toxic, explosive, flammable, corrosive, otherwise physically or biologically threatening health. Hazardous waste, however, is a material that's a byproduct of the manufacturing, right? Like this, right? Like this, right? We know exactly what hazardous waste is versus. It doesn't necessarily have a specific purpose. The biggest problems with hazardous materials themselves is the level of corrosivity. You know, everything exists at a pH balance, right? If we have something that's too alkaline versus too acidic, we could have problems going in either aspect, either way of that scale. When we talk about hazardous materials as well, we also have to understand, we have the acronyms that we utilize, including the CBRNE, chemical, biological, radiological, and then explosive. Again, homemade stuff. Because we define it by chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, explosive, terrorism, drugs. Terrorism. Drugs. Drugs is now a part of the acronym.
Drugs are.
We're talking about, right? We're talking about.
I guess I'm a tech guy.
We're talking about massive opioid epidemics, right? Multiple people getting hurt, you know, doing massive amounts of drugs, being problematic, causing problems for us. All right, so let's move on to our container types. Obviously, hazardous materials can exist in a lot of different forms. There's 3 states of matter that we experience every day: solid, liquid, and gas. And according to They Might Be Giants, which I love to teach my kids about science, is that either it's cold enough to be solid, it's warm enough to be a liquid, or it's hot enough to be a gas. Anything can exist in any of those 3 states at all. Shipping containers, which can be either rail or by sea, otherwise over the road, including refrigeration trucks, gasoline trucks, those sorts of things. At sea, a lot of times we've had these shipping containers, and we hopefully will have these things labeled with some sort of placard, the diamond, the recognizable blue, red, yellow, white diamond that'll help us to say, hey, maybe we should be careful because there might be something in there that we got to be worrying about, right? by air. They're also going to be transported on planes across seas. We're getting product from across seas delivered to us, or vice versa. On-site storage is also another thing, including the propane tanks systems that we see at Lowe's, Home Depot. I think BJ's has one as well. Some gas stations where you can exchange your propane cylinder into the cage. But again, there's some companies that we have locally that have these sorts of systems as well, where they have the chemicals stored on site just like this. Otherwise, we also have the smaller version of the shipping and storing. Again, there's chemical processing facilities. There's one over at Stevenson that they have a lot of this sort of stuff just kind of hanging out, and they intermingle different chemicals to create different chemical compounds as part of their business. We can also have very small packaging, small buckets. Again, also in this aspect as well, which this is actually a battery packing specifically containment. So there's like a sawdust that's in there, and it absorbs energy very, very easily, and it has to be packaged in a specific way in order to get things transported. We have on the team we have a box that we can specifically store X number of pounds of lithium batteries that are no good, that get shipped away to get disposed of, but we don't want to have anything to do with that because there's a whole chain of custody that we got to deal with at that point. So when we're responding to these things, we have lots of different kinds of equipment, obviously, that we utilize on a day-to-day basis, including our standards with our SCBA, our ERGs, fans that we can use, our 4-gas monitors. Ticks are great for paying attention to containers to see if it's chemically reacting at all, if it's polymerizing in there, if it's going to change its state. Again, if it's cold enough versus warm enough versus hot enough. The hotter it gets, the more it wants to expand. Right? In terms of our vessel failures, we can have any normal different kinds of things. Again, like I was saying, with the increase the pressure, increase the temperature, increases the pressure. So you can see that this cylinder exploded because looks like it was pretty rusted out, but it eventually failed anyway. But again, it just couldn't contain that product anymore, so out it went. Vessel failures can also occur in aspects that we can't necessarily see, but also consider the fact that we have other kinds of vessel failures as well, including this, gunpowder, coming directly out of bullets, right? Because bullets, especially if somebody's making them at home, they may not be doing it correctly. We're talking about our chemical reactions. We always have products of combustion, which are the nasty bits that we don't want to be breathing in. When we're talking about our different states of matter, we'll look at our initial isolation zones. There's a general rule of thumb which is really easy to refer to if you don't have a specific guide in front of you, like with the ERG, that you just refer to if you have an unknown chemical product, whether it exists in a state of solid, liquid, or a gas. And we start off by saying, as the solid, we isolate to 75 feet. Okay? In a liquid, 150. Double it. So by that rationale, Bobby, 300. Perfect. So as long as we go by that measure to begin with, and we say, okay, I'm going to initially isolate to these zones before I have identification of what it is, you're going to have a leg up on the situation in and of itself. You can always close up or expand out your isolation zones as is. Once you set that isolation zone, it's malleable. You can determine where that hot zone is going to be according to what you find out. We do have different DOT versus military markings. A lot of those military markings were moved out of the ERGs on the latest edition because we're not seeing them as much anymore. They're very specialized, right? We're not seeing those, and some of it has to do with the government not wanting the public to know about certain things that they're hauling across the road because of whatever the operations that they're partaking in. But we do have, Air Force bases nearby. We have Detroit Arsenal nearby. We have these government facilities that are close by. We had Navstar over there too, which had government vehicles. They were specializing in polymer bonding of the outside of the vehicles to deter motion detection, heat detection, missiles from being able to track it. So they would just shoot it off to the side. But a lot of this stuff, they may not have this on the outside of the building, these military markings, but they are going to have it somewhere inside because they're going to want to know what it is, right? Again, they don't want the public to know about it because they don't want public freak out. People in the public they see something they don't understand, they're going to have fear of it, right? And then that's going to cause extra problems. And the emergency response guidebook, we're organized into different sections. The first section being white, which is help to identify your placards, your containers, such as over the rail, over the road, local packaging, things like that. Yellow is defined as first and foremost with the UN, so that 4-digit number that's on a placard is you're going to look up that number, and it's in numerical order. I'm sorry, no, I apologize. This is the chemical name. This is going to be the chemical name that's going to have a UN associated with it in alphabetical order. You can see that some of these are highlighted in green, and there's a reason why. The blue is what we're looking for the UN number identification. So you look it up by the number if you don't have a name, and you find that number that's on that placard on the side of that truck, 1742.
Isn't it the other way around?
Look that up.
Isn't yellow the UN number and then blue the name?
Are you right? You right? So I was right the first time?
Yeah. Your UN number here.
Yeah, you're right.
Blue is
Yeah.
sorry. Your name here.
I always get those two confused. Like you can tell how much I use this thing. Anyway, but you can see also, again, in this section, again, we're defining by the chemicals. We're seeing that it's highlighted in green, and there's a specific aspect that's referred back to the green section as well, which means that there's additional information you're going to want to know about this product if you have a leak going on. The orange is the response aspect of it, meaning it's what the guide is directing you to do, to say, hey, you should be isolating this. Be careful of this hazard. You're going to want to use this equipment maybe. Take a look at these. These could be the exposures that you're dealing with this particular kind of chemical. Now again, these are going to be generalized guides. They're not going to be specific guides, meaning you have chemical A, B, C, and D can all be referred to by one guide number. So the response is going to be the same, generally the same for all three of them until you come up with that extra information through research to say, this is how it's going to react, this is the target, these are the target organs that it's going to react, this is the extra shit that you gotta have to worry about, this extra crap that you gotta worry about for it. The green section being our isolation, especially gives you a guidebook for night versus day because of temperatures, ambient temperatures, wind, that picks up at specific times, people being out and about causing atmospheric conditions to change. Those things will make a big difference. And that's going to help hopefully get you a little bit better guess as to what you can. Again, as long as you're starting at 75, 150, 300, and move from there, you should be completely good to go. The last section is the light section, which has a lot of the very useful information, including number 2, Chemtrec. Chemtrec being the American organization, the United States organization, that you can call 24/7 with anything, any question that you have at all. They're extremely knowledgeable. They're very, very helpful. You have a child who swallows Drano, right? You call them up. Hey, I got a 6-year-old who swallowed some Drano. How much did they swallow? It looks like about a tablespoon. Okay, how much do they weigh? They weigh this weight. Okay, fantastic. What specific Drano did they swallow? Right, they're really, really specific. They really, really know what they're dealing with, and they say, then they're going to give you advice. They're going to give you advice. They're going to say, hey, you can either transport now, feed them this, give them some milk, do this, do that, the other thing. They're going to give you the information that you really need. They're also going to keep track of what's going on across the United States. This is where they're responsible for knowing when stuff is getting shipped across, whether it be by rail, by road, or by air, in terms of where things are going to go in larger quantities. So that way, if there's a major event that occurs, Chemtrec can be contacted and they can say, hey, we know this company is hauling this today at this time, and this is the truck number that they have associated with it, this is the chemical that they have, this is what you guys may need to be looking up, all right? But you gotta be careful about contacting Chemtrec too, because they are so busy all the time that they are very, very short. There's nothing personable about these people, because they have a serious job that they gotta get done, okay? So don't expect to have a good conversation with them. There's alternative versions of this phone number as well. If you're within Canada, if you're within Mexico, you have different numbers that you can call to get that same information, but by and large, it's basically the same organization. Thanks for watching. My name's Alan Rudder, firefighter paramedic with Madison Heights Fire Department.